and welcome to this day of the fire of the nations in the Enlightening Our Way Together Convergence, December 2023. And we're in the unit of justice and unit of economics convergent space of this convergence. And the session just before us was about the collective spell or the collective disease of Wetiko that we find ourselves in. And this session is about what are the pioneers and the co-creative people. What can we do to create the next version of life systems that we want to see? How do we really come together and create the healthy infrastructure, the healthy ways, the healthy economy, the healthy education? And how do we do that? How do we structure ourselves in a way that we start to build and build on each other and resource each other, so that our collaboration has a real effect and impact in this world, in our lifetimes, because we feel the urgency now. So I'd like to, so I'm Kara Stonehouse. I'm from the Hague Center for Global Governance, Innovation, and Emergence. And our strengths are in meshworking and collaborating and weaving. So we work with the brightest evolutionary leaders, and we help bring us all to a collaborative level together. So how do we become one movement together? And we do lots of processes of deep listening. So we tune into the spiritual intelligence of life and get guidance from the field to energize our actions, to energize each other, to build deep bonds with each other, and to see clearly together. And so I'd like to also have my co-host Felipe Leall introduce yourself from Gaia.
Thank you very much. Hello, family, for the ones that we haven't met yet. I'm Felipe from Colombia. I'm representing the Gaia network, which is basically the reminder that we are part of this larger container we call Mother Earth, planet Earth, and that we have to weave these connections in a way that we can honor the relation of life to life, and that we just want to thrive, and that everybody thrives, every single being from all the realms of nature, and of course in deep connection with the spirits or the invisible world that kind of give us this guidance and also the possibility to heal, to learn, to remember. And in that sense, well, we are also a very abstract thing, but at the same time it's very concrete because it's life. And also because it's life, we know we have to create the systems that allows us to flow into what we want to see manifested in the world. So, well, we have a lot of things to share, but let's move on with the program for now.
So our flow for today, we're just going to do a little some grounding together to land in this deep listening space. And then just a brief one. We did a whole ceremony 2 days ago in the Global Fire Ceremony room that was really about deeply connecting in on an energetic level. So we'll just tune into that again and find where we left off there briefly. And then I'll share for about 5 minutes about the bigger vision, the big umbrella of the vision. And Felipe will share a more precise, drilled down version of how some of the tools and systems can work and are already ready and almost ready and needing us to come in and participate with them. And then we'll have questions and feedback on the ideas that were presented. And then we'll tune into more of a conversation about, okay, and how does this relate to you and your work, and do you see yourself as part of this, or is it separate, or what do we need to do as a movement or do you see a totally different way? That's all, so that's second half. So this will be an hour and a half. So the last half hour will be more about that feeling in together. But what's that path that we're really seeing together? Yeah, so how do we see our movement going forward? Right. So let's tune in, breathe, and feel our feet on the ground. And do the way that you like to ground. Become really present as all of us here together today are visionaries, are co-creators of the future that's yearning to be born through us now. It's calling us, and that's why we come to answer from all around the world to be here together now. Tune into a figure 8 kind of energy that comes through your heart and out into the world. Let that energy grow and flow. So we're learning how to build this world together. You have to relax and let it come in, and relax and let it go out, and offer your gifts and receive the gifts of the other, and offer your gifts and receive the ideas and gifts. You have to deeply relax. It's not about if I was right or wrong. It's about discovering together the way. Discovering the way home. The way home where we belong, where we know and remember who we really are. That we belong on this earth, connected with it, with life flowing through us as agents. We're part of evolution, we're part of life. And our purpose is to create beauty and more life. And the joy is our compass, so that if we know that we're off track or on track, when our hearts are full and our energy is vital and we're living our dream, and that's when we're in line with life, and that's when we're creating a healthy world. And love is a force that ensures we survive. We care for each other, for our children, we care for each other, and we expand our ability to love out to greater and greater circles, so that it's all humanity, it's all life, it's longer time frames. We remember how to open. Yes, thank you. I'd like to share with us today what keeps me up at night, what wakes me up in the middle of the night, is when I'm imagining how are we going to do this? We've been at many World Unity Weeks. We talk for a long time, and we pray, and we believe that we can do this, that a better world is possible, and that it's coming. We feel it. And I say, yes, coming through us. How are we going to make this happen? And so I start to get visions and ideas, and I'm writing some down. And then when I share them, I'm finding that other people have the same visions and ideas, and they align, and that it's time to really build them together. And that's why how Felipe and I found each other and are working together more now. And so I'd just like to share with you what's putting together just in my heart and mind from what I know and from what I'm hearing in the field, what I'm seeing everyone doing. I've put together one possible arc pathway, one possible arc that we could take. And I know that that's not the way. I know there's no way you can, obviously in complex systems, so much happening, there's no way you can really predict or really control what's going to happen. But I feel that the value of this visioning is that we can see the scale and the scope of the big steps that we need to take as a collaborative, as creative as conscious co-creators. What do we need to build together so that we can really become the system of influence? So that's a theory that many of us have heard of, about the two loops of civilization, where the modern civilization is at a peak and it's such a wonderful, intelligent civilization. But the externalities are catching up with us now. So all the ways we're shutting down our hearts and not caring about the whole, so that we could have such a successful civilization, it's coming to bite us now, and that system is cracking and crumbling. And the second loop, is the innovative loop, is that's sensing into the pain, saying, whoa, what can we do differently, and stepping out from it and saying, okay, let's pioneer. So people have been pioneering for a long time in the eco-villages, in the alternative currencies. And so those pioneers are working away and not being that successful because the whole system doesn't support them. Like, because you're struggling, you're trying to create the gift economy, you're trying to do it with God, but so we're trying to do it without money sometimes, and it just all kind of keeps falling apart, and it's not getting traction. And so as we start to sort of starts to develop, we're learning more and more, and we're getting better, and we're actually getting more accepted by more people because more people are seeing the cracks. We start to get more funding and build up our skills together. Then as the pioneers start to connect to each other, that's when we really start to build something new, and we start to build this new system, and this system becomes the new dominant system. So what was alternative agriculture becomes agriculture. What was alternative education becomes education. And so that's the big two loops framework that we're on. So what's one way that we could actually really become that system of influence? I'd just like to share that with you today. And so I use a framework called 5 bold steps. So have a vision, and what are the 5 bold steps you could use to get there? It's just a way of helping us make things concrete. So when I think about myself and my life, I'm like, what stops me from living into the new economy and the new way? So growing up in the modern Western economy, I wanted to join an eco-village, but couldn't quite take the risk or do it because I wanted a good job, I wanted a pension, I wanted to all the modern amenities. So how could we create it felt like too much of a sacrifice to make that leap and to get my husband to agree to it as well and all that. So it made me think, like, how could we create a different economy to live into, so that there would be a job and education and even a way for the healthcare and the education and the pension, end of life care, to be all sort of incorporated in a system, so that when I take that leap to really follow what I really want to be doing, that it's all there for me. And so I'm calling that sort of like a whole Gaia life system that we could create together. And it would be thinking of ourselves a lot more like a big nation, sort of, that's distributed all over the world, and that we pay into with a sort of a membership or sort of a like equivalent to taxes, and then that creates funds that then we can build these systems together that to support us to be living into this new life. So the 5 bold steps are these. So number 1 is using grants and donations. We bring the pioneers together, some of the leading pioneers, and we create a prototype of a fully functioning Gaia system. So we take the pieces that we have. We've got the Earth Charter, we've got the eco-governance framework, we've got the Earthwise Constitution, we've got what Seeds have been working on, and HIFA for how do we do distributed governance online, digitally. we have tools and practices that people have been working with over time. And so we put that together in a way that we say, okay, this is the way we're going to try now, and we have people working on it, and we pay them with some alternative currency and with some of the grant and donation money, so that we say, okay, if we were to do the Earthwise Constitution, what roles do we need? Let's pay people for those roles, and we'll actually create that governance, and it will probably have some core and many distributed centers. We call it like multi-centric. So it's not like we're just remaking the old system with a conscious lens, but we're making sure that we incorporate all the principles of life, so that the main things, that health and wellness are in the center, integrity is really at the core through only conscious, mature people being in the leadership roles and that sort of thing. So we start with the governance and those tools that help us govern in a multi-centric way. So we have some of those tools, like already where the HIFA platform does that very well, and is gaining traction in its field for that. And then and then that also includes, there's the governance portion, but also some of the that we would make a platform where there are jobs that you can do, and so you can earn money, and you can and there's courses that you can take so you can learn how to do those jobs that need to be done to create this new system. So we would be sharing with alternative currencies and some fiat money, a combination of both, so that we can still buy the groceries at the normal store, but that we can also be supported, but it connects up to the local eco village or the local sustainable farmer. So you get your food box because you have a job in the Gaian network. And as that's sort of going on in the background, or we take advantage, we work with there's many sort of a vision emerging in the field that I'm sensing into, that in every corner, in every city, in every town, people have like a bonded group that they're with. So if you're having that co-creative feeling, or if you're having, you want to make the world a better place, there's a way to find us there's sort of the Hollow Movement, or there's this Peace on Earth game with David Gershon, or there's the United Religions International have these community circles, and there's a few different organizations that make pods all around. And so there's always somewhere to land where you find your small tribe, where you learn together and you develop together. And it's almost a little bit like church, like you feel really bonded and connected and part of your purpose, but you don't necessarily have to do a big project in that, but that everyone has somewhere to land. And then it's also good communication streams to everyone. So then when we create these sort of systems and platforms and currencies, we have also a way to communicate and teach about those, how to use them together, and so that we're connected that way around the world. And then as more and more people start to live into this sort of global conscious system, that means they don't have to, you don't have to go to the normal university, you don't have to go to the normal job that's sort of soul destroying, but you have needed to do it to pay the bill. So more and more people don't have to do that anymore. And so the system grows and grows over time. And then, so then step 3 would be expanding out that system, starting to, now that we can demonstrate that something that we demonstrate it in a few cities that it's working, that people are really able to step in and give their full contribution and be fully resourced and be very fulfilled and happy in their work in this system, then they can we can start telling other people about it, say it's real, it's here, come join, and that kind of thing. And then one of the ways that that's important is how are we going to fund this system? So often right now we're volunteering, we're getting grants and philanthropy, and it's very difficult to sustain the movement. So I think a really important element of this is the funding. So we'll have to actually build profitable enterprises to sustain us. And so that will be some of the work that's used. So we have to make some profitable businesses, and they could be just very normal businesses like web hosting, or we build condos and have them so where you're living is the eco condo, and then your mortgage is the eco mortgage, and it's all supporting each other. And then one key piece of it is also the end of life retirement care homes, that they can be very profitable and normal people can come and live there. But then the people who have been giving their whole life to the Gaian system have earned up all this credit, and then you get your end of life care. So you kind of get a pension out of it as well. So it's like this full life system. So I just want to stop there because I think I'm over time. And then just the last phase, so it feels like it could grow exponentially. And then as the system is really catching on, then it sort of starts to become the Main Street system, and normal governments say, okay, well, I guess that's how we do it now. And more governments start to change over, and institutions start to change over to these conscious ways of operating. And so that's the theory, that if you really empower the individual to really give their fullness and be their fullness, then we can create that whole system and shift the world in 50 years. That's my vision. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. So, well, as Kara was mentioning, we have many of these frameworks and platforms basically ready to go, to be explored, but especially to be activated with all our inputs, our ideas, our products, our services, all our goods, the good things in life that we are holding in our hearts, in our minds, in our pockets, and in our hands. I mean, productions, possibilities, arts, and online courses or retreats. All these we have been already putting all these together. So I'm gonna just show a little bit of this map of what we are doing, of what we are putting together, because it's putting together, basically it's a harvest from many of these networks that we have been part of. All of us has been part of different networks, but in here, what we are trying to do with this Gaia system, Gaia network, is to put these pieces together. So, well, first, it's always difficult to know where to start, but I'm gonna start with this small, quick overview of what we are trying to put here as a collaborative ecosystem. So the first thing is that we have like two main layers. One is the Gaia system, the Gaia hub, where we are plugging the different initiatives, just like as an alliance, a general alliance. And at the same time, more internally, what we are putting the Gaia hub as the Gaia Commons as the members, where we start really sharing these resources together, coordinating, collaborating, looking for funds, allocating these funds, having a governance, and creating some sort of advocacy for all the stakeholders. These are some of the areas, or mainly most of the areas, that we are working on in different levels and different, of course, more specific ways. So we have basically all the areas of life. This matrix is based on the chakra system, which basically covers all the areas where humans develop our lives. So health, arts, economy, governance, education, communications, eco-urbanism, or urbanism development, spiritual development, self-realization. And basically we are creating communities, land-based projects, ventures and the agency as the center or the core of all this. This is part of the one of the possible frameworks where we can start putting the resources together. So we have basically divided into three main sections. One is the more philanthropic, where we want to help people without expecting anything in return, just to put some of the resources into eco-social impact where it's highly needed, education and content creation, and platforms. So these are, especially this is like the one that can hold the network together, the platforms, the core team doing these different specific operations, just serving the whole, not as a not the benefactor itself, just the people and the platforms that is helping to put the pieces together. In balance with this more philanthropic perspective, we have the investments. So we are thinking of how to grow our fiat income so that we can keep nourishing the whole system. So it's a non-profit system which will reinvest all the profits back to the ecosystem. And the kind of the where we find all the grounding and the equilibrium is investing in these local ecohabitats, or however we want to call them, bioregional centers, bioregional communities, or intentional communities, local projects, etc., etc. So we are also committing, basically we are dividing, we're envisioning that it's a good balance to divide this into three pockets where we start funding the different opportunities that we have. And we'll leave this one. And well, basically with a set of funds and tokens, focus on mainly on, so one fund is focused on land, acquisition of land, as and on not just acquisition but also whoever wants to put their land in these commons, the land trust. Another fund focused on production of products and services. The time that we are going to put into this system, working by giving our time, and the philanthropic funds. That's how, in general, it will. That's a quick summary for now. And I wanted to show you, especially, we wanted to share you some of the platforms that we are using. So we are using local scale. Well, here is in Spanish because it's already translating automatically to everyone's language. So it's a great place where when you sign in, first you are directed to your own bioregion. So here you have one of the central bioregions in Colombia, where we already have different places that are part of this bioregion, but this will happen in every part of in any part of the world. Will take you to your own bioregion, but there's also a global marketplace. I'm gonna show you one of this is like a central agency, what we were talking about, like the agency that is putting some of these things together. So here we can already, anybody, no, not just us, but anybody can already expose their products, their services, events, whatever. Right now we have different, for example, examples here because we are just starting. We have cacao, we have retreats, we have gatherings, the Eco Village gathering that is going to happen in January. And you can already pay this with the tokens. That is the next, well, what I was, yeah, going to start. Referring to that, we already have some like alternative currencies working and already able to really to get products and services, even land. We already have land that is backed, that is backing these tokens. So these tokens are not just a promise for the future, it's something that it's already things that are already being produced, things that are already happening, things that are lands that are already there and are going to be developed, as I was explaining before. And yeah, and basically just to round this, we also have the governance platform, which is HIFA, where we can have all these transparent and efficient governances happening in chain. And well, I could share more, but for now I would just leave you with this little image of what we are envisioning as these bioregions, biohabitats, weaving together, no? Everything that we are doing in terms of education, tourism, human development, conservation, production, entrepreneurship, well, all areas of life. So that's the network that we've been putting together, and that basically we're inviting you. We know you are all this family, this network that we want to plug, that we really put our hearts and hands together in the 3D, and we make this at least as a first pilot of something that is ready to be experienced. So thank you. And if you have any questions or inspirations, please raise your hand or just open your mic.
And maybe we can go in gallery.
Hello. Excuse me. My name's David, and I live in Costa Rica, and I steward a farm here. And I just sent a kind of a long text message, and there's so much more I could type in addition to that. But the primary challenge I faced is, like I said in my text message, is something you already spoke to, Kara, which is having the trust to move into a new paradigm known as eco-villages, which is not the matrix model with all its systems. And ironically, this is a perfect time on the planet to move into those eco-villages because the matrix model is in flames. It's not working like it used to. But let me get to the point of my share here, and that is, how do we develop the trust? Because my experience here in Costa Rica with this land node that I'm stewarding is that we have outer work and inner work. And the outer work is pretty easy if the inner work has been done and we learn how to trust one another. And that's a big if. And I'll try and be concise here. What I think would possibly work, and I'd love the feedback from anybody here, is that we create artificial trust at the outset. And that artificial trust is written agreements, responsibilities, roles, complete with value exchange agreements, and a condition of satisfaction, which is a lovely way to say accountability systems. And then ideally over time, some of the members aren't going to get past that condition of satisfaction program. But the ones that do over time will develop genuine trust that will root down and then allow this to proliferate ideally over multiple generations. And essentially, I'll conclude by saying we're trying to move away from the value system, the dominant value system of fiat currency or any currency. And the value system I feel we're moving towards is a modern tribalism type value system where we are able to create collectively what we need rather than have to buy it. And that is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. We got to bridge toward that. So, yeah, we modern humans have to decondition. Whereas if we were born into a tribe, we're done suckling, the elders come, they already recognize who we are, what we're capable of, give us our role, and that's all we know. That's our imprinting. But we modern people have to decondition. And then ideally we create environments, eco-villages, where the children, the new beings, are indoctrinated, probably not the best word, into a tribal type culture. And of course, our tribes aren't going to be warring over territory. That's happened a lot already as well.
Thank you, David. Very rich and deep. That's great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm pretty sure Luciana can share a little bit around that, so maybe let's give a circle.
Yes, thank you, Felipe and Kara, and to the gentleman who just posted that concern. I share that concern, and we were just talking about that before we started to go live, which is the need to empty and to reset our consciousness. And so I would just pick up this last word and just suggest that when we present these beautiful systems, because I really, I've been sharing with Felipe for about 10 years now, and I've seen how this vision has grown from just talking circles to now these like full 3D presentations. And so it's really beautiful. I still see the same essence as always. It's just getting every time more and more detailed. But what I would say is that we can pick up this this concern about trust and transform this into a positive approach, and beginning to all of this process may be an incubation process. And I think that since Felipe is going through this very quickly, maybe he didn't get the chance to talk about this. So I would just pass the feather at some point back to Felipe, because I know that this is built in within the proposal. But it's very important for us to understand that we do need to recondition our consciousness in order for all of this, because governance is really, Kara started with for me, what would be the last spiral in a proposal, because the governance is really a result of what's happening inside. So I would just say that it would be interesting to add on to this presentation something that will help us focus that the way we're going to get to that governance. What is the process, the incubation process, so that because the governance is made up of individuals, right? So what process does the individual go through? What is this proposal for the Gaia sphere, in these Gaia systems? What would the individual, I'm a new individual, I'm new to this, and I am coming from the Western world, and I don't know anything about this, and I'm full of all the disinformation and all of the results of this modern world. What is this system going to offer me to really go through the human process of inner transformation so that I can become a steward? I can become a responsible citizen of the Gaia Commons. That would be my question. And it was right along the same path. So that would be, it's more a question for you.
Good. Let's collect some more, and then maybe we can respond to all together. Joe, you're the next one with your hand up.
Yeah, wanted to keep building on the same theme that both David and Luciana were just talking about, and touch on it from what we've been doing in Barichara, Colombia for the last 4 years. And to let you all know that we are woven into the story. You might have even seen Barichara on the local scale page that Felipe was showing. One of the things that we've been doing for 4 years, so in end of 2020, early 2021, I ran a crowdfunding project, raised $50,000, bought some land in Barichara. And for those of you who don't know, Barichara is a very beautiful, special place. It was also the place with the most intense violence during the time of violence in Colombia. Clan-based violence of families killing each other on the streets for about 50 years. And they now are one of the most stable and peaceful places in Colombia. They've constructed their own peace, the local people. So this is a place where there's a lot of tension and a lot of trauma around outsiders, around land, around power, around money, and many other things. And trust is a really significant issue. And so as we started a process with that initial negotiation of a land purchase, which was a decolonizing process and purchasing the land to create a nature reserve and a regenerative project. And then we moved from that into an advisory council, funding about 20 local projects, and began a process of creating a territorial foundation, meaning a community philanthropy, local governance, local economy model. And it's real, it's human beings, it's about 90 local producers, it's about 20 local projects. So it's real. Just want to say it's not, diagrams on paper. And I think what Luciana said is absolutely right, that and I think David, maybe I'd bridge it in this way. What you were suggesting about creating agreements and protocols and roles is really, really helpful scaffolding. So that will definitely help. Even with that scaffolding, the real work will be more like what Luciana said, which is this deep work of healing traumas, of decolonizing ourselves, of re-indigenizing ourselves, which is very difficult, very delicate work. And that the inner and the outer, that dichotomy just doesn't exist. It's completely erroneous. The reality is that for our group in Barichara, we went through several rounds, several patterns of building trust breaking down, some people continuing, some people leaving, everyone's still in community. So even the people we have conflict with that we don't work with, we're still in community and our kids go to the same school, and we keep healing and we keep building trust and we keep building trust. And so this process is very human, it's very painful, it's very beautiful, like all of it, it's the full human drama. But the way that I see this is without having land held in common to enable some of this to work, and without some people in the community having enough devotion to be able to work through trust conflict in multiple rounds, then it just won't happen. So we have to create the ability for that to continue. And that's where I think a lot of this around funding and partnerships and multiple locations working together and learning exchanges between them, all of this is essential for the continuity of that process, because the healing and the trust building takes a lot of time. And it is the foundation of all of it. So it must be that. So I just wanted to name that is right at the core of what we're doing. And I think, Pavel, it's nice to see you. I think you'll have beautiful things to add to the mix. But yeah, so I just wanted to add some of our experience.
Yeah, Pavel's authored an amazing visionary book about the 100 years transition. So with honor, I welcome Pavel. Yeah.
Thank you, and really appreciate being here and discovering so much resonance with your vision. And Joe, very nice to see you again. And many other familiar faces. Yeah, I just wanted to share that when you shared your vision, Kara, it actually is very similar to what we in multiple teams across the world have been trying to get off the ground in the last, let's say, a little bit less than a year. And we tentatively called this project University for the Planet, because we envisaged we need a new type of learning space for communities on the local scale, learning together for this global transition that you've been beautifully spelling out. And the work that many of you are doing, like Joy in Colombia, are exactly our manifestations of this work that now we need to create. So the way we have been discussing this with some players is that we need a kind of global approach where we have these local nodes, very local work that is rooted in the community, rooted in the land, with a global layer, like a global mycelium connecting those, mother trees, becoming a forest, like or at the scale of Gaia, essentially. And how can we just held this conversation with Living Cities Earth called Learning Gaia, which is exactly in the spirit of that. How can we create that learning layer of Gaia? And I think part of the story that I will briefly share some of the projects that on which we are currently working. I sense a lot of resonance, so I definitely need to continue this conversation outside of this call. But very briefly, we have identified basically 3 groups of work where we think we can start, and it sort of mirrors the strategy that you have spelled out. We indeed need to start with whole system prototypes, and we need to also create the connecting tissue, and we need to create some kind of way of organizing human individual and collective journeys across this process of like bringing it all to life. So essentially it's on one hand what we call a knowledge garden, and it's sort of we began working on this as a partnership of multiple networks, such as Phyto network, which already is a constellation of multiple networks around the globe, Youth by Youth, Global Education Futures, and a number of other networks coming together to create this layer of collective learning and shared knowledge exactly about the regenerative transition. So how can we kind of organize it? There is already a team that sort of began to build it up, and we'll be happy to welcome more players to sort of step into this and collectively raise funds for this connecting tissue, this mycelium of our projects. We are working on learning journeys. The idea is to organize local teams and give them knowledge, support, and potentially seed funding, with efforts primarily in regenerative economy, peaceful futures, and future of learning. So 3 aspects. So it's about transition of economies, it's about creating the culture of peace, and it's transforming learning systems to become in service of that. And the third component is actually hubs. So I was really pleased to see the presentation by Felipe. It's really exciting to see that there is a lot of resonance. Exactly, very similar model. We're now considering to create one hub in Northern Europe and one hub in North America. And we are very open and very interested to also have something in South America. So let's work on this together and see what we can do together. Part of our team are people strongly connected to Colombia. One of our good partners is Victoria Aro, who is the founder of the first Ecoversity in Latin America. So there are some really, let's say, good people that can contribute to this network. And I sense that we are basically parts of the tribe discovering each other. And this discovery needs to continue. So my vision of it is actually that we are like imaginal cells or parts of that Gaia's, let's say, future neurosystem, awakening to our role as part of this meta tribe. And the more we learn to work with each other and not just do our isolated work, but really start to see how we can connect, how we can support each other work, and what is that support system that will enable us to do this work at scale, not to compete for funding, not to compete for our goals. We are doing the same work, and we do it in different places because of that, it needs to be distributed and mutually supportive. So how can we create a true global ecosystem based on the principles on which actual living ecosystems are based, which is collaboration and mutualism? I'm all for this, and let's continue this conversation later. Thank you.
Wonderful. And also David Gershon, a true legend in creating the Earth Run, the torch around the world for hope and peace, and this Peace on Earth game is now alive in us.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. These are brilliant ideas. well thought through, early stage, but prototyping. So pleasure to be in the company of people who are putting things into form. Joe, good to see you again, my friend and my brother. I've been keeping an eye on you and so happy with how you're progressing. We need to connect, and we will. So one of the challenges of eco-villages, and my colleague Miranda, who's with me, who's been a student of eco-villages and villages, is the people component. We are the problem and the solution. We have a lot of structures. We know what we want. We know what the systems are that we need to create. But how do we transform how we show up so that we can create these types of communities that tend to break down because we ourselves need to do work? But how do we do that? What is that work? How does it work? And then how does a model work that actually is holding the whole, not just the parts? So how do we build a collective vision big enough to pull us together, to transcend that which separates us? Those are some of the questions that I've been working with for some time now. And we have yet another prototype, if you will, in play. We've been working on it in one form for 5 years, in another form with the Earth Run for some 47 years and counting. And that's a vision of peace on Earth with a specific date in mind, 2030. And part of our experience has been getting people to play what we call a peace game that's built around 7 peace practices that, if you will, could become a foundation and is becoming a foundation for peace on Earth zones, aka eco-villages, aka whatever we want to call these local hubs. And they're built around 7 core competencies: empowerment, oneness, unity, cooperation, abundance, love, and faith. These words can connote many things to different people, but for us, they are practices. And the words aren't necessarily that easy to define in the ways that they're usually understood. So empowerment is around building the agency to be an effective person of change and transforming those parts of ourselves that need to be evolved for us to show up well in the world. This is a lot of the work we've done for several decades now with my wife and our Empowerment Institute. The second is on oneness. How do we befriend those who are different from us? How do we learn the skills to do that in our lives and in our communities? The third is on unity. How do we find that which we share in common with others and celebrate that? The next action is on cooperation. The Earth Run was dedicated to learning how to cooperate. We studied 1,500 case studies, and so we became skillful in the art of cooperation, and the game helped people learn how to cooperate for the common good. The next one is on abundance, which is building the field that furthers this kind of work by providing time and money and all our goodwill towards efforts that are creating peace on Earth in some form or other, furthering one or more of these values. The next one is on prayer and visualization. We call it love, prayer for the humanity. So agape love, the highest form of love. And the last one is on faith, which is faith in humanity, faith in our future, faith in ourselves. When you bring these things together, you start to create a more enlightened, empowered, and transformed human being. We've worked with 5,600 people, 35,000 peace actions across 7 peace on Earth zones in 13 countries, and now getting ready to scale. Just to bring closure on this idea, or should we say opening the conversation for this piece of the puzzle, what makes this unique is that it's not inner work and it's not outer work. It's this integration. because the game is played in your life. So the people you play the game with is the people you show up in your life, the person you buy something from, the person who's your neighbor, the person who you're potentially working with, the person who's in a similar NGO. So you learn how to apply these skills in your real life. So as I was thinking about the system transformation we need to make, and so many people are looking to build the new systems, as am I in my work, I thought, well, what's the fastest, most efficient way to build these social systems? Well, we can reform politics, we can reform economics, we can reform education. But what if it evolved from us? In other words, what would it look like with a political education or economic system built around these practices that emerges, that is not trying to fix what is and make it a little better, which was never designed for these kinds of transformations, these social systems. So that's part of the experiment. And so we are very much excited to work with any of you who are building anything that's trying to evolve into the new social construct for humanity, new communities, new social systems, new economic models, new education models. I think the piece we're holding is a catalytic piece. So happy to be in conversation with anybody who is in design mode. And last but not least, we have a plan to get to peace on Earth. We call it the Peace Plan. It isn't just about the communities, but it's about how we evolve the human civilization itself. Anyone who's interested in that, I'm happy to send our peace plan. But its goal is to get there by 2030. So it's a big idea. It's built on these ideas, but it's more transcendent because it's got a global aspiration. So.
Yeah, and I'll just say that it fits in so beautifully with everything that you're talking about, and you having tools, technologies, supporting at local and global level. Everything that you talk about is things that we talk about as well, and how we foster more trust building, more, getting past conflicts into a more unified vision, learning how to actually collaborate, learning what unity and oneness actually is, and doing that at a local level when you're inside of a Peace on Earth zone, or just in our own interpersonal relationships with family, coworkers, all of that. So it's beautiful, Kara, how you were also, positioning that things like this can be our Peace on Earth zones. We look at them as like think and do tanks, where we're using a lot of David's teachings and techniques for building second order change and learning a lot of these, but then having tools like you have for being able to show on the map, there's a hub here, there's a hub here, there's economic systems going on with tokens and marketplaces for exchange that are fostering regenerative efforts and the way that people can have stability and places to learn together and share knowledge. We hold some pieces of those kind of things, and a lot of blueprints and tools that David brings inside Peace on Earth zones, but we need all of these things too that you're talking about, and these hubs that are emerging and conscious people. And it's so much of the same exact languaging and blueprint. And I was just taking notes like crazy. I just love hearing, some of us have been in the space for so long in the research process and part of so many different eco villages and communities, but to hear a unifying narrative coming together of multiple people around the world wanting this and wanting these hubs and wanting places where we can live and be in close proximity, but then share with each other globally, really what's working, what's not working, what are tools, what can we really implement, what really creates peace, and this new human operating system, basically. So yay, thank you for all of you being here. And yes, contact us for partnership and how we can collaborate and how we can weave these together into the future. It's awesome.
Thank you. Lisa, let's.
Yes, I'm glad to be here. It's very spontaneous that I arrived. Seeing people that I haven't seen in a little while. And those of you who have met me before understand that my approach is through water. And there is nothing more intelligent than water on the planet in terms of its organizational design. And so my invitation is that all of this be somehow interwoven to follow the wisdom of water in the way that we come together, because I keep asking, I keep hearing us saying, how can we do this? And water's already figured it out. We need to remember how to listen to water and look at water and hear what water has to tell us. And that pattern exists already in terms of how do we cooperate, how do we organize. And, you know, essentially we organize bioregionally by climate and watershed. That's what water does, right? And so the project particular expression that I'm working on is the Water Unity Network, which I see as a network of networks of platforms coming together, each with its own specific sort of guild or sector or expression, focusing on education or governance or whatever, or all of it together. But we don't need one network. We need a mycelial network that allows us to weave together the immense diversity, which is the strength of life on Earth. And so right now the platform's being built on. So one of the reasons why people haven't seen me is because I've been trying to build what I've been talking about for 12 years and have finally gotten to the point where I can start inviting people in. And the first platform that I'm building it out on is the World Water Community, and just creating simple, small groups. You know, the question of trust. If we bring in the people we already trust, then we have an inherent trust. So if we can start collecting those people and making like lifetime or covenants with people for our life, not necessarily lifetime in terms of length, but lifetime in terms of how we're spending our time in life, to be there for each other, to be the support system. And those small groups, those small units those circles of trust can then become more formalized as we really can turn that trust into practical application. Then we can form DAOs in these small circles. So the circles of trust could then form into sort of small DAOs that could be linked with other DAOs that can start really building out our community, and that local empowerment of what needs to be done in our particular community, because every watershed is unique as to what it needs. There's a lot of similarities in that imbalance, but there's also some very specific needs, and just the plants and the animals that are there, and the weather, and like all those unique factors that come into play. And so that's sort of the local empowerment. And then the bioregional connection is that watershed and that bioregion, understanding that is how water's organized life. And that's really where we can have the strongest impact, because there's a lot of projects, and I'm sure, Joe, you're familiar with these, in terms of when we're rebalancing our local water cycle, it's rippling out and spreading out. As we start regenerating locally, it spreads. And so then that's begins the global networking, in that along climate bands, we can have similar knowledge that can be applied Costa Rica and Guinea, West Africa, you know, or Canada and Ireland, right? That these bands, we're recognizing that the Earth has these bands of organization as well in terms of climate and how things are woven together. So everybody here, I invite us to connect and put our information in the chat so we can kind of build out our own databases. And I'm sure there's one building in terms of a larger database that we can really start weaving together, because it's so clear we need to. And one thing that I would like to emphasize, just because of the state of the world that we're in right now, is that we need democracy, true participatory democracy, in order to do what we need to do. And so however we can protect the democracy in our own communities, I think that's an important element to this, in terms of that unitive justice and really allowing people to have a voice and that voice be heard. And there's ways that we can kind of follow, again, water's pattern in terms of aggregating that wisdom and creating a body of wisdom and a repository of curriculum, and allowing ourselves to really be hyper radically collaborative in ways that we have never, ever imagined before.
All right, let's do it. Thank you. Yeah, that's a really great point. The listening to the water. It's not really, it's not as present as it could be in some of the writings. So I think that's great to keep reminding us of that, because we do believe in that, listening to all the different elements, including water, is a really important. Yeah.
Everything grows off of it. Without that, there is no life, right? So without liquid water, we would be Mars. So let's start right there.
Okay, we're in our last 10 minutes. So Joe,
Yeah, I just want to add on, because Eliza, I just want to give you a big hug. I agree with you so strongly. I shared in the chat the link to regeneratecascadia.org. We did a bioregional activation tour in Cascadia in October, and starting in the beginning of November, they are organizing around collaborative funding and governance with watersheds, because there are 435 watersheds in Cascadia, because Cascadia is such a huge bioregion. So I just wanted to draw attention to what Eliza is describing is exactly the kind of from the ground, grassroots organizing of democratic participatory structures with governance and funding being woven in, and with bioregional learning centers and education, the way that Pavela described it, all being in the context of Cascadia. And just for those who don't know, Cascadia is one of the best known, most mature, longest standing bioregional movements on Earth. Going back, there are some very strong bioregional movements around the world, and Cascadia is sort of a visible demonstration of capacity. So Regenerate Cascadia, as the name Regenerate Cascadia, is only a couple of months old, but as a movement is more than 50 years old. And so I think we're all going to learn a lot from them, the way that they're organizing watersheds. So I know that they already have a Cascadia Resilience Group, a Cascadia Seed Guild, where they're organizing the local seed guilds to a bioregional scale. And they're setting up digital coordination infrastructure for the watersheds. And they already have them in the Whatcom County, Bellingham area. They have them in Eugene, Oregon, around the Willamette Valley. They have them in Portland, the Columbia River Gorge. We have things happening on Victoria, on Vancouver Island. And this is just that they're self-organizing into coherent structures with coordination among them. And they're prototyping for the rest of Cascadia. So, so just to name that, what Eliza is describing about organizing around the intelligence of water. And by the way, in Bellingham, you have places like Inspiration Farm with like more than 30 years of some of the deepest and best water restoration practices connected with regenerative agriculture. So just to say, it's like, this is really awesome stuff. And Cascadia is exemplary of what we're all talking about here. So I just wanted to name them into the space and encourage you to follow with excitement what's happening in Cascadia, because it's really cool. So that's what I want to add.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's just so amazing. Yeah, I think we could go on and on. I mean, we have time if we want to go on and on. You should probably try and end on time. I think one way that at least we can start to just make sure we're connected and continue this conversation is on the Mighty Network. It's the One World Mighty Network. And I just put the link in the chat. And if we each want to add yourselves into the unit of justice and economic space, or if you're having trouble getting there, let me know on that network. Then that'll make it easy for us to keep the conversation going and invite to follow-up conversations and that sort of thing. So let's talk a bit about follow-up. What are some of the next steps that we can see? Felipe, did you want to start this off on that?
Probably, yeah. I don't know, David, you have something more related to the interventions?
I just wanted to add something to build a little bit more synergy with what Joe was just saying, and that is that we are just in the early stage of developing a Peace on Earth Zone bioregion in the Salish Sea area. So we have some great opportunities here. We have a strong organizer who is stepping up to organize 30 Peace on Earth zones in that bioregion. So it'd be good to connect some dots here so we can synergize and get the land, sea, people interface a little bit more optimized. So let's connect. Anyone who's working in that space, in that area, or in general, because I think the idea of creating bioregionally based Peace on Earth zones across multiple communities starts to weave some good things together that I think will get a better outcome than if we just work on one or the other.
Yeah, totally. Well, so actually, this is the question that has been driving us for the last almost 15 years. That is, how do we really create the spaces that are neutral, that can still be focused, but not excluding other people, etc. So first of all, we have been focusing on what platforms should we use for connecting. And one of the conclusions is that we don't really have to create a whole new platform where we have to invite the whole world to start using a new platform. That's kind of well, a little bit ambitious. But there's great platforms already, like Telegram actually is a very good platform and it's safe enough to use. So we have created this group that I share in the chat, where this first group that I share is like the core people that we were talking about, that we want to keep this conversation going deeper. So like the Gaia Hub umbrella for all of these different ideas, organizations, networks, to have a space which is very easy to use. Everybody kind of knows Telegram or is willing to use Telegram, so it's not a specific one. We are also developing different platforms for social network, multimedia, content sharing, but this is a second level, right? Like this is more open, and some people might come, others might not. We also have, well, I already mentioned for governance, we have a very good and ready platform that is called Haifa. For project management, we have Nestor, which is also created by people thinking like us, holistically, holonically, integrally, for these new types of organizations. And especially, I think I mean, apart the things that I already shared, like local scale, etc. The big question is how we really keep this conversation alive in a space like this, that we say, okay, basically we keep weaving every week and everybody can come, everybody can express their ideas, we can have some debate and get to some agreements. So we are proposing to keep actually this very similar space on Tuesdays at very similar time, like maybe a bit before, but we can find other spaces. All this we can talk on the Telegram. Most of us, well, not most of us, but some of us are already there. And we have other more open groups just to the general network that are organized by thematics. I can also share that link, but well, probably that's not fully necessary right now because we want to create a good container so that we don't leave too many threads open and not fully enough focused so that we can continue this specific weaving. So we are welcome your suggestions and ideas around this. How can we keep this going on?
Felipe, I'm sorry. This Telegram space is specifically for the people who are in this Zoom meeting. I'm not quite understanding.
For the people aligned with the purpose that we have been sharing, that is to keep this thread going on, yeah, the weaving of this thread, of these threads.
Yeah, there's already lots of people in that group, right? In the tens and
Yeah, like
30s.
50
Yeah.
persons that are fully aligned with this vision.
Yes, and then the hollow movement is going to continue on. We're partnering with that, and so it's going to come to life in due time, and so it will be part of this weaving as well. And there'll be some processes within that to be a part of at different times. It's just in the forming stages, so it's not really ready yet for everyone to hop on board, but it's in process. And what else sort of supports you so that you can focus on what you want and you can weave just enough to be connected? What supports us in that?
Yeah, and just to compliment very quick about Telegram, there's for the ones that know Telegram, you can create like a group of groups. So we have this one that is for the core group, but we also have one that is focused on continents, another one that is and languages, like different languages, so people can connect in their own language, and another one that is more focused on countries, and at some point it would be by regions. So to really have the space, the neutral space where people can meet. Most of these groups don't have a specific proposal that is the only one that is accepted. Is more how we weave, because as we saw, we are creating basically the same things or complementary things. So we just need to have that space to keep that conversation going with that focus, not general focus.
I was having a fun vision recently, like what if we had made a little news channel, where like someone was like interviewing people regularly or sort of talking about like what's the news today in our movement and that sort of thing. So it's just like an easy little morning thing you can watch for 5 or 10 minutes, and then you just get little bites all the time of what's happening for us. I don't know if anyone wants to take that up. I'm not sure if it's me, but maybe I'll do little parts of it.
Yeah, media is an important tool that we could, I think, engage more creatively.
I have a thought about the how and a certain other sort of working group or prototype group. What I find most helpful for me is to discern what stage a social innovation has gotten to. So some are early stage ideas, some are just pure visions, some are frameworks that haven't been applied, but they're just conceptual frameworks. Some have built a prototype, some have piloted the prototype, some are beyond piloting, they're actually demonstrating something. That's the next stage before scaling. And in my work, I'm very clear where I add the most value. I personally can add value at lots of levels, but where I'm most drawn is minimally proven prototypes that have been piloted, so that I can see opportunities for interface points or docking points or synergies. What I know is that to build what we call second order change social innovations requires mature synergies to occur, and that doesn't just happen. And so I'm just suggesting that for me personally, I'm attracted to those that have minimally got well beyond a framework phase, well beyond the vision phase. They have a working prototype where they have piloted it and are now ready to go into demonstration mode. So anyone who feels they're in that category or wants to maybe hang out in that space, you know, let's start to have a conversation. Miranda can help us get organized. Miranda helps us make these things happen. So anyone who feels called to that, my email is in this, and Miranda also can put some information in on how to reach out to us.
Yeah, that feels rich, and then it keeps it strong as well. Like it's not just chatty chat. It's like we're building stuff.
I think
yeah,
we have to be discerning on how we design at this next stage, because we've done a lot of chats that don't get very far, and not everyone's really knowing how to contribute because they're at different stages of development of their social innovations.
Yeah, I would actually probably clarify that, yeah, normally I always speak about the vision. So the vision is manifesting in all these different levels that you just explained. And basically when I say this vision is that holding the space so that these different threads and these different levels can manifest. So that's when I say like there's different groups in Telegram. In some groups, it's just letting the general public to know what's happening, different invitations, different people sharing. Then there's like people that are already organizing locally and doing their own communities. And this one that I share especially today is for these people that already have this kind of pilots and yeah, and demonstration, going to that next level, next step.
Yeah, the reason I raised my hand was just to we would really love to be in a collaboration group to learn about Telegram itself. I mean, I'm a part of many Telegram groups, and I've seen lately to where a lot of you guys' groups are going to these, you know, now a community, a super community. Now, you know, you have threads inside of them of here you can talk about community events that are going on. Here we can talk about, you know, eco-villages and collaborate in different parts of the world and everything. So I tried to look at Telegram instructions myself and see how we can start building one of those for ourselves. And it was so complex. So even if there is a group that we could start that we could learn how to build our own for like the Peace on Earth game and the Peace on Earth zones, and then connect to these and see how we can have these connections, I would absolutely love to be in that kind of group if one exists, or if we want to start one to where all of us can learn how Telegram can be useful for this. It really is starting to be a technology that's so open sourced and that people are continuing to build on and is doing a lot of this capability if we can learn how to use it to its max to connect our networks. So I'd love that for one. And then also, I work with Unify as well, which most people here that know me already know that as well. I work with David, but before that was working with Unify. We've done global synchronized meditations and had as many as 36,000 partners working together on some of these before. So if there's different things that we've done in the past, like you're saying, Kara, of, you know, 4-minute updates or whatever to the world about what's going on and how we highlight this space and what's happening to a greater public audience. So we have that there as well. We have a big network, you know, can broadcast out to like 100 groups at once and get agreements on those kind of things with Unify. So I can take any of this stuff to them as well if we're wanting to have a bigger shared, distributed, you know, voice kind of thing happening, and then getting feedback in those sessions of who else wants to be on board, who has land projects, who has these different things, and start a greater discussion in that way as well.
Right. Yeah.
If I could just say one thing that I would like to add to what you were sharing, David, about where the focus can be. Having a maturity model in the meshwork process, we often use that. Is there any consciousness or none? And we know the next step and the plan, etc., and how to do that in the learning, but also see how in getting those insights, we can also support some systems to leapfrog because of the exchange of the learnings, indeed. And I can imagine that, Pavel, in your system in the Learning Planet and how we're going to be working together, that could be something that could be very easily added to the learning journeys that are in that part.
Thank you. Lisa?
One thing I'd like to call us to attention to is Eleanor Ostrom's 8 principles for managing a commons. And there's been some work to sort of evaluate that work and expanded on it. And there's been a couple studies. And so this is really a interesting, I think, work group would be to get a group together to look at this and come up with this particular group's list of how those design principles could be applied to this in particular. And so I put in a PDF, and I'll also put in a Google Doc that we could actually have it be collaborative, that kind of has sort of collated some of these different things, and it's work in progress, but would love to get some input on that. I'm kind of putting this document out to different places, and then I plan to kind of combine those as well and just get the collective intelligence looking at that in terms of, because really what we're speaking to is returning to the commons and learning how to govern that within sort of our modern paradigm and the new paradigm, especially the new paradigm.
Great. I just want to share briefly what I drew today. It's not the most wonderful thing ever, but it just takes the energy of what we're saying. So just the shape of what I was hearing was that there's like there's the local hubs, or like the roots, and that's where we learn to trust and learn to co-create. And we use these kind of empowerment, development ways of growing the trust and the capacity in the individual through the Peace on Earth game and other offerings that people have mentioned in the chat. And that these are where those regional learning centers are coming to life on this local level. And we're listening to water and the way that water organizes in bioregions, we're organizing in bioregions. So keep listening more and more to water. And this merging of the inner and outer was one of the themes that we're not just doing inner work or just doing outer work. We're sort of integrating the inner and outer so that we're really co-creating. And the integration, I call it the integration, and then and that's sort of like through us. And then we're creating these global layers. There's the learning layer and the governance layer, creating this mycelial network. And at that level, there's some opportunity to get the collaborative funding in to feed the roots. So then our bigger plans for peace and change and climate can all be coming into fruition. So that's what I'm hearing us say.
Yeah, and probably a good kind of conclusion of the invitation is that we can hold the space for this, for some of us that want to bring these different proposals or whatever to the table, and that we can start deciding, for example, if we get a funding opportunity, that whatever that we feel that is the next step, that we can start deciding together. So that's where or not just deciding, but finish co-creating whatever we have in the table. And how to ignite this.
Yes, so we know together what's there, how to synergize, and how to fund it together. Okay, let's close. So let's close with what are you taking away today? 1 or 2 words in a go, and we do it in popcorn style. So just when you're ready to share that, share your 1 or 2.
I have 2 words that I was wanting to put in, so I'll put into the closing. What I'm not seeing here, which I know is here, but has not really been spoken to, is Indigenous wisdom and youth wisdom.
Thank you for naming that.
I'm
So,
Sharon.
please go ahead.
Hopefulness, absolute divine hopefulness. I'm sitting on the edge of a bay in Florida watching a dolphin pod hit a fishbowl, and I have so much joy watching this, and there's so much hopefulness around what's going on in the background here, which is the bombing testing going on at Eglin Air Force Base. So thank you all for your work, your devotion, your love, and your care.
I resonate with the word hopefulness, and it's more so. I feel that indeed there is some process of forming the next layer of that unity that begins, and it's here. And yeah, there's a lot of inspiration that I hold.
For me, I feel the tapestry weaving itself. The Gaia consciousness is doing the work. And I don't experience it as hopefulness because I understand how much death and destruction is still coming. But I feel it happening, and it is happening.
For me, gratitude to all the people who have been working for so long. Thank you.
Including you.
It's like excitement and gratitude.
Yeah, also a lot of excitement and that cohering feeling.
A lot of hope and trust in a better future with a lot of love.
With abundance, interdependence, and governance.
Gratitude for you, Kara, for you, Anne-Marie, for you, Felipe, and anyone else that was organizing this gathering. I had a low expectation based on what usually these gatherings are like, and it was easily exceeded by virtue of the quality of people and the design of how you organized today. Oops, it's more than a word, but that's my experience. So thank you, gratitude, and blessings to everyone who's working so hard to do good for planet Earth.
Alive potential and possibilities and dedication. It's going to manifest.
I'm going to follow on that. A lot of excitement and deep gratitude for everybody who has already done so much work in this space. And I'm very happy to see how much coherence there is in this group on what needs to happen next. And I just want to end with a heartfelt invitation to please do join us in that Telegram group. I know it's many groups, and trust me, I feel with anybody who has had it with all of these groups. However, I would love for everybody here to keep on going on this initial spark that we have created here today and dedicated all this time to make sure that we can find these this nervous system and circular system that can unite this organism around Gaia and connect all of our nerve and cells together and have that shared flow of abundance. So I really hope to see you in that specific Telegram chat.
Blessing. Thank you. We're complete.
Thank you so much.